Good evening and welcome to Views with Joyce Waddell. Thank you for joining us this evening. Our topic for the evening is ministry serving the youth of Charlotte. We have as our guest Pastor Willie Anderson. He's the senior pastor of the Judah Deliverance Ministries in Charlotte. And that ministry meets at the Country Hearth Inn on Equipment Drive. There are a lot of things going on with our youth, and Pastor Anderson is doing a lot to change what he sees and to make their lives productive. He's helping young people to be successful in school, and he knows that education is one of the keys that can make a difference in the success of their lives. So welcome, Pastor Anderson.
Thank you.
And thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for inviting us.
Pastor Anderson, when you say serving the youth of Charlotte, why aren't you serving the elderly?
Well, Ms. Wardell, I think that it's important for us to recognize that we're constantly saying that the youth are the future of tomorrow.
That's right.
And if the youth are the future of tomorrow, then the question always lies is, how much interest are we playing? How much interest are we putting? How much are we putting into? How much are we sowing into the youth that would empower them to be able to lead us on tomorrow? And that's the thing that gives us the energy, making sure that if our youth are going to be the future for tomorrow, that they are empowered with the necessary information that they need that will help them make healthy versus unhealthy choices.
You know, in some societies, they have what you call like community centers, such that the youth stay there most of the day rather than they only go home at night. And all the teaching and everything that's associated with them are conducted there, and their lives are guided in such a regimented force that they're constantly protected and taught. Do you think our society will ever have anything like that?
That's an interesting point. I believe that the diversity of our community, especially with the different backgrounds, when we look in Charlotte, for instance, Charlotte is a very diverse community. We have a number of people like myself who are transitioning into the Charlotte area, and so in transitioning to the Charlotte area, the cultural nuances that guide and empower decisions that they make are going to be different. And so I think that allowing people to be taught the value of their individual cultures will empower them more than trying to develop people into functioning into one particular culture.
Pastor Anderson, I'm reading something by Alex Goring, who's a historian, says, lifting up, giving back, changing one life at a time, self up. If you want to lift yourself up, Booker T. Washington once said, you have to lift someone else up. And he knew, as did his rival, W. Du Bois, that uplift could take many forms. Donations of time, talent, and energy, for example, can often be more valuable than writing a check, because the time that you spend with another human being is time well invested.
We believe that. I think I could concur with that. Oftentimes within the ministry, you'll find that people are very competent and feel very confident in their ability to help by giving their tithes and paying tithes within the church. But we're beginning to recognize that when we're talking about tithing, tithing represents time and talent as well. And I believe that it is our responsibility, especially those of us who are the Christian faith, to come outside of the walls of our church and be able to put back into the community some of the things that were given unto us. If you have time and talent, if you're willing, if you have talent with academics, then being able to share some of the academic successes that you have with youth who may be a little less fortunate than your children may be, I believe is what one would aspire to do, especially if we believe in this whole concept that it takes a village to raise a child. Then that means that, you know, it's going to take a concerted effort from everybody to do what's necessary to empower these children to be able to do what they're doing or better.
Pastor Anderson, you said you were new to the community and you were getting indoctrinated into the Charlotte culture.
Yes. Exactly.
Is it quite different?
Yes, it is. I am from the Washington, D.C. area and have been in ministry for over 17 years under the tutelage of Bishop Glenn Staples from the Temple of Praise in Washington, D.C. And we've been in the Charlotte area. We relocated here approximately 18 months ago. And 8 months ago, we opened our church. My experience here with Charlotte is that Charlotte it's a lovely city. I'm enjoying not my stay here, but residing here because I've made this my place of residence. I plan to be here. I'm planted here. I'm learning what it takes for me to be grounded in this area. And so learning my way around and becoming more comfortable with going down the street and then looking up and it's changed its name. And then I go a little further and it's changed its name again is one of the things that's a little different, but thank God for GPS systems. It's helping me to be able to find out how to get where it is I want to go. Yeah.
And one of the things that you mentioned, one of the things that you studied and you wrote concerning youth, that as we invest in them, as we try to make their lives better, make their lives productive, is that primary before the behavior starts. Now, at what age are we talking about, and what is it that we can expect to do with them or for them before the behavior starts?
When I wrote that, Dr. Wardell, I was speaking primarily about the stages of prevention.
Oh, I understand.
And in the stages of prevention, there are three primary stages of prevention: primary, secondary, and tertiary. Those are the three stages of prevention services. In the primary stage, that is the stage where childhood development begins.
And what ages are we?
And we're talking from the ages of 4, 5.
Okay.
The age when you'll hear the child say,
Okay.
when they see something. It'll just be a,
It's an awakening,
It's
an awareness.
an awareness of. Then when you get to the secondary stage, you might see a transition or a progression with the to a I might try that. Seems or appears to be interesting. Still not being very problematic. It hasn't caused problems for the child, but the awareness of the existence of it and maybe some challenges with it may have existed. And then last but not least, you have the tertiary stage of prevention. And that's the stage where the I'll try that has progressed to trying that and trying it to a degree where there's been abuse of it, whatever that particular behavior might be, and it has caused some problems where some kind of treatment services may be required or interventional treatment services may be required to address the level of involvement that the child may have gotten himself into. The thing
is all of this at the age 5 years old that you progresses through different ages and stages of life?
Right. I think it goes through different stages. In the primary stage, the interventions that are taken are a lot different. And I've got to say this, that since being here in Charlotte, I found that in different ministries, in different community-based organizations, different state-operated organizations, Charlotte is doing a lot in providing services. And so we really want to applaud all of those agencies and churches and just people in the community as a whole for their efforts recognizing the need.
If there are so many services and the service delivery model is there, then why do we still have so much dysfunctional behavior? And so why does that happen? Seems like something else or some other approach needs to take place.
I think that's a good question. I'm glad you asked me that, because I believe that what Charlotte is recognizing now, that there's time for change. There's a concept that says insanity is doing the same thing, expecting different results. And I believe that it's time now, just like with the voters, and the voters expressed this, that they were tired of doing the same thing and expecting different results. They recognized if results were going to be different, they would have to vote differently and put different people in office. As a result of that, we'll see, and we're seeing and experiencing the change that's within the officials that will represent us. Well, the same thing happens when we're talking about providing services for our youth. It's time for change. We can continue to place money into programs who we know are not providing the kind of quality services that are necessary, as evidenced by the repeat of offenses that the youth are in. So then it means to us, it means to me, that there has to be a willingness and open-mindedness of people in Charlotte to begin to recognize, well, if these models aren't working, why? Could it be that the reason that the models aren't working is because now the models worked when they were addressing the needs of the youth who were raised in Charlotte. But with the influx of people coming from all over the United States, not just the United States, but all over the world, who are relocating to Charlotte, what they're also bringing with them are their social issues.
So a lot of the misbehavior that we see among youth happens to be the influence of many people who are coming to Charlotte rather than the native Charlotte.
No, I don't think that we will blame the new people for coming and saying we would have been fine if you guys had stayed where you were. No, that's not fair.
But do they teach the ones who are already here?
No. I mean, if we're going to name and blame, then we start with the TV, because even before they got here, if you look at some of the TV shows that the children watch, there is a certain level of I think I'll try that, just from watching some of the TV shows. And again, I'm not blaming the TV shows. I believe that it takes a concerted effort on everybody that has a stake, who are stakeholders in this. But getting back to my point, I believe that what will happen with us is when we become willing to accept the need to change the way we think, the way we feel, and the way we act as it relates to being open to receive new ideas and new services, right? Then I believe that then and then only will we begin to see the kind of changes that are going to be necessary. Take, for instance, with our police chief. Our police chief came and he recognized that in order for him to achieve some of the goals, there needed to be some changes. The things that they were doing in the department just wasn't accommodating the needs. He had to make some changes. There was a lot of resistance because people are just used and accustomed to doing things a certain kind of way. But just as he was able to implement changes within the department to begin to achieve some of the goals that now everyone is applauding him for, I think the same thing happens with service providers who are providing services for youth. Ministries, let's start with the church, because that's what I represent. Churches have to change their whole ideology about how they're serving the youth. They have to come, pastors have to come from behind the pulpits and go into the communities.
Audience, we're continuing to talk with Pastor Willie Anderson. He's the senior pastor at the Judah Deliverance Ministries here in Charlotte. And our topic for tonight is serving the youth of Charlotte. He's very interested in young people and in helping young people to achieve and to be successful in life. And a lot of things that he sees happening to young people can be prevented, and young people can be productive. They can be felt to be useful and valuable in what they do. And so, with the ministry that you are putting forth to serve youth, you have to recruit them from the community, or do they normally hear about you and come to you?
Well, we have to do community outreach, and that's part of our purpose for being here, and we're certainly very appreciative of your allowing us the opportunity to introduce our ministry and the services that we're providing through our ministries.
Now, you studied somewhere in Washington, D.C.
In the Washington, D.C. area. We were and studied under Bishop Glenn Staples. Our ministry...
Glenn Staples?
Glenn Staples.
Okay.
Bishop
He
Glenn
has
Staples.
a large church in Washington.
Yes, we have approximately 13,000 members.
In one church?
In one church, there's about 13,000 members that we have. Right now, there are 3 services that are given on Sundays, then Bible studies on Wednesdays. And it started from, and I must say this, that over the 17 years, it wasn't that large. From the very beginning, we had approximately 50 members.
You started from 50
From
members.
50.
In 17 years, you went to
17 years is 13,000 and 23 other pastors who are a part of the ministry.
Of that same ministry.
Of the same ministry, who are connected to the same ministry.
And that same
exactly.
church. You
In
got
the same
13,000
church.
going to that
13
one church?
There's 13,000 members that come to the church.
That must be the largest church in the District of Columbia, isn't it?
No, it's not. It's one of the largest. It's not the largest.
What you call a mega church?
We would call it a mega church.
That's amazing, isn't it?
It's amazing. It's amazing. But it's possible when you have the kind of organizational structure that is needed, and you have, as Bishop Staples has, a heart for the community.
And the outreach that's necessary.
Exactly.
And young people's lives are being saved.
Exactly.
And I guess a large part of what he does is reaching out to young people.
Exactly. Exactly.
Audience, we're going to pause for a moment. And we had a young man who was with us who was very beautiful on a saxophone. And we're going to focus back onto some of his music. was the music of Jonathan Rose. Jonathan Rose plays a lot in the park, a lot on the corners. He's self-taught musician, and whenever he can, he stops by to do songs for this viewing audience. Audience, we're continuing to talk to Pastor Willie Anderson. He's the senior pastor at the Judah Deliverance Ministries here in Charlotte. And our topic for tonight is serving the youth of Charlotte. You mentioned some of the stages, and many of the earlier stages that you'll be focusing on with young people's prevention.
Exactly.
Are there definite signs that you see when you know that young people are headed in a direction that's not productive?
Right. I think that from the clinical perspective, there are signs and symptoms that will allow you, if you're making proper observations, to see that there is beginning to be a progression. And the appropriate interventions that need to take place can then happen. But I think that what begins to happen a lot is we are not focusing as much as we can on the problems and the situations. I think that there is some focus to it, and I don't want anyone to misunderstand what I'm saying. Again, I'll give a lot of credit to and a lot of applause to those who are providing services, because they're doing the best that they can with the hand that they're dealt. There is, however, a need to do more. And when we talk about prevention, especially in the tertiary, this third level of prevention, that's the focus where I'm really concerned about. Because it is in this stage where there has been, with our youth, involvement. Now that they've gotten involved with the behaviors that have placed them at risk, what do we begin to see? Now there's been problems that have been associated with whatever these behaviors are. And those problems could be identified as being involved in the juvenile justice system. They're not going to school. There may be some substance abuse that's attached to all of this. Well, then one would say, if they're already involved and it's evidenced by the things that they're involved in, then why would you want to develop some kind of tertiary intervention strategy? What would be the point? What would be the need? They're already involved. The need, real simply, is to prevent them from moving and progressing into the adult system. Because once they get into the adult system, they're lost.
They're at the point of diminishing return.
Exactly.
When they're in the adult system.
Exactly. And I think that if the proper interventions are made prior to that, we can evaluate. Granted, there are some that will need to go into the adult system. But there are also some who, with proper assessments, proper alternatives, can turn things around. And those are the ones that I believe that there needs to be a welcomeness from the people of Charlotte, a welcomeness from the attitudes of people within the school system, people in the police department, people in the housing authority, people in mental health, within the agencies across the board, a welcomeness to look at what can we do? Is there more that we can do to change this population? What are some of the intervention strategies that can take place? And be welcome to look at not doing the same thing and expecting results to be different.
I want to thank you for being with us. I'm happy to come back again and talk more about the programs that are going on and the successes of them and how it's helping our young people. And audience, I too want to thank you for being with us on Views with Joyce Waddell. You've been with me through the years, and I've tried my best to bring you very good programming. We have a crew that's been with us most of the day, in fact, all day, and for them I'm very grateful, because it is with volunteers that we're able to bring programming to you.
That's it.
I might even tell the monitor. When I start.